I'm with Julien Mercille, a UCD professor, and we're here to talk about the election. Julien, a lot of people are a bit disheartened because of election promises that were promised the last time, and they were, they were reneged on basically. Why should you vote?
Well, it's true that first that a lot of people have lost faith in the government. If you look at the string of polls, very recent, because the election is approaching, so they want to know what people think, and 60% or more of people want a change of government. Now the media always spins that as something like, government support level reaches 30%, as if it was amazing, but it's actually really, really low. 2/3 of people basically think the government should be changed. I mean, this is a massive indictment of whatever the government has done. And it's normal, I think, to think just to give up and say, well, okay, there's no point voting. They're all crazy, and there's no change possible. But I think we should vote because there are candidates that are better. It depends where you live. Again, in some constituencies, you might have only less of a choice or a good choice, but in all constituencies, I think there's always at least one or two people who are much better. And if you don't vote for that, of course your individual vote won't change nothing. But if everybody thinks like that, well, you get nowhere. And the one thing the government wants is people not to get involved. They're very, very scared of people getting involved in any shape or form. So if you vote, at least you can change something. Of course, elections is a problem itself because you have a say every 4 or 5 years, and as you said, the parties are all very similar. So it's not really a real choice. After that, you're supposed to shut up for 5 years.
Okay, so a lot of people who would be on Facebook may say that, well, I'm not going to vote, and that will really show the government. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a small signal, so I would never do that. I would vote because a lot of people don't vote already, and it changes nothing. And I think it strengthens the government even because it makes people are not involved in anything. I mean, if you don't vote and you do a lot of activism, most people won't do anything beyond that. And the government relies on a very pathetic population to drive whatever they want to drive through. So I think I understand the feeling that there's no point in voting, but actually there is a point, especially in Ireland, I think, where you have, where I'm from, you have a first past the post system. So in some constituencies, you will never get what you want. It's impossible because there's only one person elected. Here you have 3 or 4 or 5, so you may make a difference by pushing a progressive candidate in the bunch of other bad ones. And if you have only 1 or 2 voices in the door that are really good, like Claire Daly or Paul Murphy, they say their things and they don't influence the process that much, but their speeches put an agenda that's very different. I think just for that it's worth having them in the parliament.
Is the election debate already pre-decided by topics which are framed in a certain way before it's even began?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things about the debate, to restrict the debate to certain topics that are acceptable and to certain topics that whether you give answer A or B or all the answers possible, it won't change anything. For example, how should we privatize this or that? Or in that way or that way, well, as long as you privatize, it's fine, but maybe the answer is not to privatize that. So if you don't put that in the debate, then you won't talk about it. But there's a lot of like TTIP, the big treaty, free trade treaty, that's going to be very bad for regulations and protection of consumers. I don't hear much talk about that at all. It's not an issue that we talk about. Corporation tax, should we raise it? Should we force companies to pay more? Ireland's status as a tax haven, should we change that? It's not really a topic that you'll hear sometimes, maybe from the leftist candidates, but it's not what dominates the airwaves. What dominates is usually, to be honest, personalities, which have nothing to do with anything. They're not important. Nobody should talk about them, but there's a lot of talk about that. Or agonizing on details about the fiscal space, for example. It's important as a piece of information, but if you just talk about that and nothing else, it's not really good. Right now, there's the killings at the Regency hotels. That's a perfect gift for Fine Gael. Distract attention, divert attention from the important topics and focus on few guys who committed murder. So a lot of issues are just not important. That's exactly what they want. If you talk about the real issues like healthcare and things like that, you're forced to expose yourself for important topics, and then you can be shown to be favoring the better off, for example. If you don't put those topics on the table, then you're fine. That's what they're trying to do.
With the election, okay, you've got Fianna Fáil saying that, you know, they're only going to get into government with Fine Gael if they have a majority. You have Fine Gael saying they're going to go into government with Labour. You have Sinn Féin saying that they're going to go into government with an umbrella of lefts. Is this realistic, or is it, you know, fancy thinking?
Yeah, there's a lot of talks about who's going to get into coalition with who, especially Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, even the Independent, I think the newspaper was saying that they should really consider it to govern together. I mean, that stuff we can speculate, but I think the way I see it is that it's important to do whatever we can to elect progressives and then see for a coalition after that. There's a lot of debate on the left about that. You know, who should we not get into a coalition? Where is the red line and all that? I think it's important not to go as a progressive party into government with a right-wing party as a minority partner, yourself being a minority, because then you'll do like Labour, you won't really affect much. I mean, you can moderate a few things, but it's not going to be very good anyway. I think if Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael go into government together, that'd be good, because it'd be a very right-wing government, and the next government could probably be a progressive government, because people will be seeing them as what they are, the same right-wing party split into two. For Sinn Féin, I mean, I wouldn't go with, if I was Sinn Féin, I wouldn't go into a coalition with the right wing as a minority partner, because, as I said, you'll just end up like Labour, and that's what killed Labour, basically. So if you do that to another one, I don't see how it could change. For the coalition that's interesting to me is a possible coalition among all progressive left parties. It's very easy to imagine something like the Social Democrats, the Paul Murphy types, and Richard Boyd Barrett, Sinn Féin, and other parties like that, independents, entering into a coalition, maybe under Right to Change or something similar. That would be very good. And there's a debate, should we then include Labour and the Greens with that? Some people are opposed completely on the left, nothing to do with Labour. Others are really actively considering it. I think it depends how the election will turn out. You can see afterwards, if all you're missing to have a progressive majority is Labour and the Greens, I'd take them in, because they'll be more progressive with those people than with Fine Gael, for example. I wouldn't shoot for Labour or a Green alliance right now, but at the end, if that's what's needed, a bit like it did in Portugal, it might be, if it's the answer, the choice is that or a collapse of the government, or say, the only thing that's very obvious is if the left doesn't ally in any way, it will never work. That's the principle.
The left have a bit of a history of being a little bit divided. How could they, though, effectively unite without selling out their ideals?
Yeah, well, I don't see politics as an idealism thing. I mean, you're never going to have a candidate that's perfect, unless maybe you run yourself and you think you're perfect. But it doesn't, I never vote for that. There's nobody out there that I agree with on everything at all. I see politics as voting for the best option for change, progressive change. That's it. So a lot of people on the left are strong on their principles, but the problem with that is that, for me, I don't really consider them really progressive or as progressive as they say, because if you're really progressive, you want change right now to the extent possible. It's very easy to out-idealize anybody by sticking to your big socialist ideals. But that's very conservative to me, actually, because you're not very going to get anywhere. You might elect one or two people, but you're not going to change anything. You'll stay within your constituency, have no reach anywhere else. So I think it's important to be pragmatic, not to the point of selling out and doing like Labour, and then you end up really implementing policies that have nothing to do with what your ideals are. But I see it as a very pragmatic thing. Otherwise, there's no way out unless there's a revolution, which will not happen.